The saloon doors swung in slow, deliberate rhythm, their creak carrying across the hushed street like a warning. Folks of Dry Creek had seen many strange sights: gunslingers dragging bodies, outlaws with eyes sharp as blades, sheriffs bleeding on wooden porches, but nothing stopped hearts faster than the sight of a young woman stepping off the stagecoach, veiled in gray, her shoulders stiff, her face pale against the burning sun. "That's her," whispered a woman clutching her child close. "The bride they sent to shame him." The men by the hitching posts leaned forward, spitting tobacco into the dirt, eyes narrowing. They had heard the gossip ride faster than the dust storms, how a rich ranching family east of the river had finally rid themselves of their burden. An infertile daughter. Useless, they said. A curse, whispered others. And to make the insult burn deeper, they had married her off to the loneliest man in the county. Ethan Cole, a cowboy whose hands were rough as stone and whose soul had grown emptier than a dry well. Ethan had not asked for a bride. He had asked for peace. His ranch sprawled like a dying beast across the plains, cattle bones littering the edges where grass never grew. He worked it alone, his heart stitched shut since the war and his eyes cold from years of silence. Folks pitied him, some feared him, but all knew one thing: no woman had ever softened his heart. Until now. She stepped down, her boots touching the dust like it was holy ground. Her veil fluttered in the wind, revealing eyes too sharp for shame. She did not bow her head, did not tremble at the stairs. For a woman everyone called broken, she carried herself like iron wrapped in lace. Ethan stood on the porch of the general store, arms crossed, hat low. He had expected a frail thing, maybe tears, maybe fear. Instead, she looked at him the way a hawk looks at a storm, unafraid, almost daring. Something in his chest shifted, a memory of a heartbeat he thought he'd buried. The preacher cleared his throat. "Ethan Cole, this here is your bride. Mary Beth," his voice cracked. Mary Beth Holt. Her name rang like a gunshot in the air. The townsfolk waited for Ethan's reaction, the smirk, or rejection, maybe even to turn and walk away. But Ethan only nodded once, slow and steady, and said, "Ma'am." She lifted her chin. "Mr. Cole." And just like that, the deal was sealed, though no vows were spoken. That night, the wind howled across the plains, rattling the loose boards of Ethan's cabin. He had given her the larger room, the one his mother once occupied before death carried her off. He expected silence, maybe sobs muffled against a pillow. Instead, he heard her pacing. Steady steps across the floor. When she came out, lantern light kissed her face. "If you think I came here to be pitied," she said, her voice smooth as whiskey but sharp as broken glass, "you're wrong." Ethan raised a brow. "And what did you come for?" Her eyes glistened, not with tears but with fire. "To live, to fight for more than what they gave me. And whether you like it or not, cowboy, you'll see I ain't the burden they wanted you to believe." The silence stretched between them, heavy and unbroken, until Ethan gave the faintest nod. He respected grit when he saw it. And she had more than any man in Dry Creek. The days rolled like wagon wheels. At dawn, Ethan saddled his horse, expecting her to sleep late. But she was up before him, hands in the fire, brewing coffee strong enough to wake the dead. By noon, she was mending fences, skirts tucked in boots caked in mud, her delicate fingers pulling barbed wire like they'd been born for ranch work. The cowhands passing through laughed at first, but laughter turned to awe when she roped a stray calf on her first try. "She's tougher than you, Cole," one man chuckled. Ethan didn't answer, but in the quiet of the night, as he watched her braid her hair by lamplight, he thought maybe the man was right. The whispers in town changed. No longer was she the shameful bride. She became the woman no one could explain, the one who worked harder than any hired hand, who faced down rattlesnakes with a shovel, who rode into storms to pull lost cattle home. Some men envied Ethan, some women hated her, but Ethan found himself restless in her presence, haunted by the curve of her jaw, the strength in her eyes. And yet, he kept his distance. One night, after a brutal dust storm, they sat by the fire, boots drying near the hearth. Her hair clung damp to her temples, her dress torn at the hem. Ethan handed her a glass of whiskey. She took it without a word, sipped, and stared into the flames. "Why'd they send you?" Ethan asked finally, his voice low. She didn't flinch. "Because I can't give a man children. And in their world, that makes me nothing." Her jaw tightened. "They thought giving me to you would humiliate me. And maybe humiliate you, too. The fire snapped, sending sparks up the chimney. Ethan studied her, every scar she carried invisible but loud as gunfire. "You ever wanted children?" he asked. Her lips trembled, but she studied them. "I wanted a life. Doesn't matter what shape it comes in. But no man ever gave me the chance." Ethan leaned back, shadows cutting across his face. "Maybe they sent you to shame me. But damned if I don't feel like I got the better end of the deal." Her eyes widened, breath catching in her throat. For the first time, she looked like the fragile woman everyone expected her to be. But only for a moment. Then she smiled, small, defiant, and dangerous as a loaded revolver. The weeks turned to months. Their partnership grew, wordless but unbreakable. He rode with her at dawn, their horses kicking up dust side by side. She'd taught him laughter again, the sound rusty in his throat. He'd taught her silence, the kind that meant comfort, not loneliness. But the world does not let happiness bloom in the desert without a fight. Bandits came one night, guns gleaming under the moon. They had heard of the woman on Ethan's ranch, the one worth money if ransomed. They thought Ethan would be easy prey, one man alone. They did not expect her. Mary Beth stood in the doorway with a shotgun, veil long discarded, eyes steady as steel. She fired first, the blast echoing like thunder across the plains. Ethan was at her side in a heartbeat, revolver blazing, the night filled with smoke, screams, and the copper sting of blood. When the dust cleared, 3 men lay dead, the rest fled into the hills. Ethan's arm bled, a graze across his bicep. She tore her skirt, bound it tight, her hands shaking only after the wound was closed. "You ain't broken," he whispered, voice rough. She met his gaze. "Never was." The words hung between them, heavy with truth. Ethan reached for her hand, calloused fingers trembling. And for the first time in 15 years, the cowboy who had sworn off love felt his heart crack wide open. The town never dared mock her again. She was no infertile bride, no shameful gift. She was the woman who stood beside a cowboy when death came knocking, the woman who turned a barren ranch into a place of life. And Ethan no longer cared what the world whispered. At night, he would lie awake, the sound of her breathing steady beside him. And he would think of the cruel joke fate had played, the family who sent her away in disgrace, never knowing they had given him the only woman he would ever love. For in the heart of the desert, where dust buried dreams and the wind carried secrets, Ethan Cole had found something he never thought possible. Not children, not peace, but love, wild, untamed, and eternal. And he would spend every dawn, every storm, every dying breath proving that the bride sent to shame him was the only woman his soul had ever needed.